Why do you believe Paul's information?
Because he's telling the truth, simply put. I've been working with Paul for 2 years and following up his information, following up the leads that he has provided, the personal knowledge that he has given. Not once in 2 years have I been able to prove him to be other than truthful. I've located other people. I've located other people involved in this case that Paul has provided information on. He knows too many things, personal things about Johnny, that even I did not know when I went into this case for the Gosches. He knew things that took place that morning. He knew about the photograph that had been taken of Johnny 2 weeks before he was abducted. Nobody knew the photograph had ever been taken. Not only did he tell us about the photograph, he described it, and the background that was in the photograph matched perfectly the information that we have on the photograph.
Pretty remarkable, too, that he knew about the writing on the wall in the restaurant.
Yes. What's amazing about that little feature there is that that information about the restaurant and the wall with the writing on it didn't even come from Paul. It came from some, I believe, former neighbors of John and Noreen Gosch that were out there on vacation, saw it, remembered, and called the Gosch family. They, in turn, called me. On my next trip out, I saw the restaurant. I took those photographs of the wall. When I came back, I visited with Paul. I did not show him the writing on the wall, did not even tell him what was there. I simply showed him a photograph of the exterior of the restaurant. Once he saw the exterior, he told me what kind of restaurant it is, the unique features of the restaurant, which is very unique, and then proceeded to tell me about the fact they had been painting their fingernails that day. They were being made fun of, so they went to the restroom, and the end result was the writing on the wall. The interesting fact of the whole thing is the writing on the wall is in fact put on with dark red fingernail polish, a maroon type red. In Paul's description of what took place, they were using fingernail polish, dark red maroon type. Paul did not know I'd ever seen that restaurant or seen the wall.
Paul, we've heard some pretty amazing information that you have that would lead everyone here to believe that you do in fact know information about the disappearance of Johnny Gosch. In your mind, what can you tell us that would prove to us that you know what happened? What's the most convincing piece of evidence?
I don't really know because nobody's ever told me if anything I've ever said has been true. Nobody's ever told me that anything I've ever told them about, like the writing on the wall or the scar that Johnny had and stuff, nobody's ever told me if any of that stuff was ever true. So nobody's ever confirmed to me anything that I've ever said.
Roy just said it here, and so did Mrs. Gosch.
I have never confirmed anything he's ever said to me. I have tape recorded every session with him, which is over 300 hours. I've never once told him if he's right or wrong. He's hearing it for the first time today.
How does it make you feel, Paul, to know that you were right and that they believe you?
Makes me know that telling the truth, telling the truth can be checked out, but if I was lying, there's no way that they would ever be able to have gotten anything that they've gotten.
All right, let me get to a commercial break and we'll come back and continue our talk about the disappearance of Johnny Gosch. And we're back now. Roy, let me ask you, you've been talking to Paul Bonacci from behind bars for 2 years with such a convincing body of evidence. Why have authorities not ever interviewed this man?
2 reasons. 1, he's a convict in prison. And 2 is that 3 years ago he was charged with 3 counts of perjury to a grand jury. Those charges, by the way, were dropped. He was never convicted on those charges. Charges never were ever substantiated. That's it in a nutshell.
Does Paul have anything to gain by lying?
In fact, no. It has cost him. Because of his insistence on his story being true, his parole last year was
Paul is now scheduled to go free next week.
Yes. He has served more time for his charges than anyone else in the state of Nebraska on similar charges.
Paul, are you aware that with this information you have provided that you could, if they all believe you, be arrested?
Yes.
Does that trouble you?
Yes.
But you're still willing to come forward?
I'm still willing to come forward because it's the right thing.
You have a question here?
Yes, Roy, I was wondering, were you hired by the Gosches, or are you a paid police officer in Iowa?
I am not a police officer. I have an organization called the Missing Youth Foundation. I have worked for the Gosches for a number of years, as well as other families. Hired, yes. Fee, no. There is no money involved. I do not charge for my services to families.
Do you have a question?
Yes. Why is it that the police does not believe Paul? Is it because the police have something that they did not follow through on?
Noreen, you have strong feelings on that, I bet.
The police have many things that they did not follow through on in our case. This is just one of them. And Roy more or less went over the reasons. Paul is a convict. He's in prison, so therefore they're just staying away from him at this point. This may all change next week when he goes free. We'll have to wait and see.
Your family over the years, as you have tried to follow up on leads, has received death threats.
Correct.
They have threatened your other children that they will take them as well.
Kill them.
Kill them. So every time you have gotten close to information, somebody has come forward to try to stop you.
Every time we get close to solving the case in terms of who done it, not finding Johnny, but the person that's guilty, that may go to prison for this, we receive death threats. We have lots of problems that occur, yes.
You have a question?
I was wondering about, from Paul, who is this they that he was referring to? They will brainwash him. They have done, threaten him.
A small group of people, approximately 6 individuals, 6 adults, who abduct children, who are into child pornography and child prostitution and child slavery.
You have a question here?
Yeah, I was wondering, why did he come forward with the truth now?
Paul, why did you come forward with the truth now?
I came forward with it about 2 years ago, and because of the MPD, I didn't know about this information until I had to find the personality that knew about what had happened, because I, as Paul, wasn't the one who was involved, but another personality.
Paul wasn't diagnosed until 2.5 years ago as a multiple personality disorder. He has over 100 personalities, and Paul was never co-conscious.
Paul, I am holding in my hand here 2 letters that you received in prison from 2 friends of yours. One letter reads, "I know the restaurant in Colorado, we painted our nails, and I wrote on the wall with JG. I have another letter that says, the colonel has gone back to Mexico and has taken JG with him. JG is back to blonde and had face surgery." So even though you may not know where Johnny currently is, do you think there are people out there who do?
Yes, I do.
We'll be back and continue in a moment. We are talking to a man who is behind bars who says he has new information about the disappearance of Johnny Gosch. Paul, you have an audience here. Johnny's mother is with us. What would you like to say to Johnny's mother?
Sorry. If there's anything in the world I could do to change what happened, I would.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to him?
Paul, I just want to say that I believe you, and I do want to thank you for your help. And I want to visit with you and spend some time talking with you when you're released. Is that all right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you know where Johnny Gosch is? Please help his mother find him.
Franklin Credit Union figure Paul Bonassi. Bonassi is claiming he has information about Johnny Gosch, and he wants to share it with investigators. The 25-year-old was released from a Nebraska jail today after serving 2 years for sexually abusing 3 children. A year ago, the former so-called victim witness in the Franklin case told the parole board he had information about Johnny Gosch. Now that he's free, Bonacci says he will help a private detective try to find the boy who disappeared 10 years ago. The news is giving Johnny's mother renewed hope.
Paul possesses a tremendous amount of information, and now having him out of prison is going to make it easier for us because he can travel with Roy or do whatever's necessary. I know they'll be bringing him to Des Moines to the crime scene as well.
Newswatch 7's Frank Brown has covered stories involving Paul Bonacci in the past and joins us now from the newsroom. And Frank, I understand the Omaha police really don't put a lot of credence behind anything Bonacci has to say.
That's right, Michael. Here in Douglas County, authorities tell me they have no credibility, or Paul Bonacci has no credibility with them. A year ago, Bonacci allegedly told Omaha police he knew about a place where there were ritualistic murders involving children. But when authorities got him out of jail, hoping he could show them where those places were, Bonacci could not. And Bonacci also claimed to be a victim witness in the Franklin investigation. Instead, he was charged with lying, and that charge was eventually dropped, Michael.
Frank, I know in the past the Des Moines police were not too anxious to talk to Mr. Bonacci. Is that going to change at all?
Authorities in Omaha once again tell me if Des Moines police were interested in what Bonacci had to tell them, they would have talked to Bonacci while he was still in jail in Lincoln, Michael, and they did not.
As a longtime Iowa publisher and author of over 18 books, I was much surprised in the court system recently ruled that the Sutherland Printing Company, my 7th printer, was actually the publisher of all my works. Despite the fact that all proof was mine, the ISBN number, the Library of Congress card catalog number, and the physical imprint, Sutherland Printing Company, Dave Sutherland, father and son, close personal friend of Frosty Mitchell and Robert Ray, our former governor, and an associate of Terry Branstad, seemed to have the ability to control the court system. I began to question what was going on. I was told by a businessman in Montezuma, Iowa, 3/4 of this town know those people who are in the drug business. The last man that tried to get them was a deputy sheriff, and he ended up sleeping with a .357 Magnum on his belly. When they threatened to kill his family, he pulled out. I went from there to broaden the investigation and found local law enforcement willing to tell me that Sutherland was indeed involved in drug trafficking and seemed unstoppable. Bill Langdon of the FBI told me, in fact, that Sutherland had known drug connections, and then told me that it was impossible to help with my piracy problem. I went on to discover that Sutherland and others, in addition to being involved in drug trafficking, were also involved in child slavery. This is what led me to the Johnny Gosch case, and in July 17th, 1991, I went on the Jan Michelson Show with Ted Gunderson, former head of the Los Angeles Bureau of the FBI, Dr. Judy Ann Denson-Gerber, one of the foremost psychiatrists in the country, and public enemy #1 by her own reckoning of the North American Man-Boy Love Association. I found these people talking about NAMBLA as an organization in Iowa and in the United States that was kidnapping children, that was selling children at slave auctions. The investigation of the Nebraska legislature is what led to the material which is now forthcoming.